Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My younger brother and I always had a complicated relationship. 3 years apart, we were close enough in age to share friend groups, but different enough in personality to clash constantly. I was always the careful one, saving my allowance and birthday money, while he spent his cash as soon as he got it. By the time we reached adulthood, this pattern hadn't changed much. When our parents gave us a joint cruise vacation for Christmas last year, I was hesitant. A week trapped on a boat with my brother seemed like a recipe for disaster, but I decided to give it a chance. Maybe some time together as adults would help us bond. Plus, I hadn't taken a real vacation in 2 years, and the Caribbean cruise sounded amazing. The first few days went surprisingly well. We enjoyed the unlimited food, caught some shows, and even did an excursion to snorkel at one of the ports. No major arguments, just the occasional eye roll when my brother ordered his fifth cocktail of the day on my tab. On the fifth night of the cruise, we decided to check out the casino. I'm not much of a gambler, but I had budgeted $500 for the entire trip to play around with. My brother had already blown through his spending money by this point, so he just followed me around the casino floor, occasionally asking to borrow $20 for a slot machine. After about an hour of moderate wins and losses, I decided to try this flashy slot machine with a progressive jackpot. My brother stood behind me watching as I fed $100 into the machine. My brother complained that the machine looked stupid and suggested the pirate-themed one had better odds. I told him I preferred this one because the bonus game looked fun. I played for about 15 minutes, hitting a few small wins but mostly watching my money dwindle. I was down to my last $20 when it happened. The machine went crazy with lights and sounds. I had hit a jackpot worth just over $10,000. My brother's face transformed instantly from boredom to excitement. Casino staff came over to verify the win and process my payout. I was in shock, never having won anything significant before. After taxes were withheld and I had the money, my brother and I headed back to our cabin. I was still processing what had happened when my brother asked how we were splitting the money. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't planned to split the jackpot, but in the excitement of the moment, I decided to share some of my good fortune. I told him I would give him $2,000, which should cover all his expenses for the trip and then some. I handed him the cash, expecting gratitude. Instead, he just pocketed it with a small nod and a brief thanks. The next day, things felt off. My brother kept making little comments about the win. He remarked about how nice it must be to have all that extra cash and suggested I could afford the premium restaurant, while he would have to eat at the buffet. I ignored these remarks, chalking it up to jealousy. But on the final day of the cruise, as we were packing up our cabin, he finally exploded. My brother demanded to know when I was giving him the rest of his money. Confused, I asked what he was talking about. He explained he expected another $3,000 since he thought we should split the winnings evenly, meaning $5,000 each. He had only received $2,000 so far. I stared at him and questioned why I would split it evenly with him. I pointed out it was my money that went into the machine and I didn't have to give him anything at all. He argued that he was standing right there and we were gambling together. According to him, that's how it works. When you win, you split it with the people you're with. I told him that's not how it works at all. I reminded him that I had already given him $2,000, which was extremely generous considering he contributed nothing. He accused me of being selfish and greedy over what he called a random stroke of luck. I expressed my shock at his entitlement, emphasizing that I had given him $2,000 just for standing there. The argument escalated with him claiming that the win would never have happened if he hadn't been there for good luck, and that I owed him for all the times he had helped me out in the past. I reminded him that the last time he helped me out was lending me $50 3 years ago, which I had repaid with interest. The rest of the trip was tense. We barely spoke during the disembarkation process and took separate rideshare services home from the port. A week later, I started getting texts from friends asking about the cruise drama. Apparently, my brother had been telling everyone that I had cheated him out of his share of the jackpot. According to him, I was a greedy monster who had used his lucky presents to win and then stiffed him. I was furious. Not only had I given him a substantial gift, but now he was damaging my reputation among our mutual friends. I decided enough was enough. I texted all our mutual friends with screenshots of my casino receipt showing that I was the only one who had played the machine, along with a picture of my brother's text thanking me for the $2,000 gift. I explained exactly what had happened and how his entitlement had ruined what should have been a happy memory. The response was immediate. Several friends admitted that my brother's story had seemed suspicious, and they apologized for believing him without hearing my side. Two of them even confessed that he had tried to borrow money from them recently, claiming he was owed cash that I was withholding. My brother called me that evening, angrier than I'd ever heard him. He demanded to know why I was telling everyone our private business, and accused me of making him look bad. I replied that I was just telling the truth and he was the one who decided to lie to all our friends. He complained that it wasn't fair, insisting that since I got lucky, I should share. I reminded him that I did share by giving him $2,000, but I told him that from now on, I wouldn't be sharing anything else with him. Not money, not vacations, nothing. I also mentioned that I had canceled the joint birthday gift I was planning for our mom, so he would be on his own for that now. That hit home. He'd been counting on me to cover most of our mother's upcoming birthday present. As usual, the line went quiet for a moment. Finally, he reluctantly conceded that maybe he had overreacted a bit. It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as I was going to get. I hung up and blocked his number for the time being. I needed space from his toxic entitlement. The $8,000 I kept from the jackpot went straight into my savings account. As for our relationship, it's still strained, but at least I now have clearer boundaries and a better understanding of just how entitled my brother truly is. I've never been a fan of those fancy neighborhoods with all their rules and weird power-hungry residents. That's why I bought my house in a quiet area outside the city. No neighbors breathing down my neck, no complaints about my lawn being too tall, and definitely no homeowners association to tell me what color I can paint my mailbox. My property is pretty big, about 3 acres with a nice open backyard that's perfect for gatherings. So when my cousin got engaged and asked if they could host a small engagement party at my place, I was happy to help. They live in an apartment with no yard, and renting a venue was way too expensive for them. We planned a simple celebration. Just about 30 people, some food, a small dance area, and modest decorations. Nothing crazy, no loud music after 10 p.m. and plenty of parking space on my property so no one would block the road. I even went around to the few neighbors I had nearby to let them know about the party. Everyone seemed cool with it. The day of the party arrived. Everything was going great. My cousin and their fiancé looked so happy. We had just finished dinner and people were starting to dance when I noticed a woman marching across my lawn with 2 large men following behind her. I'd never seen her before. She looked about 50, wearing clothes that screamed, "I have money and you don't." The men with her wore matching polo shirts with neighborhood security embroidered on them. I met them at the edge of the party area. I politely asked if I could help her with something. She responded abruptly, demanding that we shut down the gathering immediately, claiming she hadn't authorized it. I was confused and told her this was my private property and I didn't need her authorization for anything. She then introduced herself as the president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association and explained that all gatherings needed board approval according to their bylaws. I was even more confused and explained that my property was in part of Oakwood Estates. I pointed out that the HOA boundary ended at the creek about half a mile away. She laughed dismissively at my explanation, insisting that all properties in the area fell under their jurisdiction. She threatened further action if everyone didn't leave. By this time, my cousin and their fiancé had walked over to see what was happening. My cousin asked what was going on. Before I could answer, the woman singled out my cousin, demanding to know if they were responsible for the unauthorized gathering. My cousin explained it was their engagement party and that I had given permission to use my property. The woman declared she was shutting it down and ordered her security men to escort my cousin off the property. To my shock, her security guys actually grabbed my cousin by the arms. One of them pulled out handcuffs and started to put them on my cousin's wrists. My cousin's fiancée protested, asking what they were doing and demanding they stop. Everyone at the party was now watching. My other cousin, who had been getting a drink, rushed over. I should mention that this cousin is a police officer in the neighboring county but was off duty for the party. My police cousin stepped forward and ordered them to release my cousin immediately, stating they had no authority to detain anyone. The woman asked who my police cousin was. My police cousin identified themselves as an officer with the county sheriff's department and explained that what they were doing was illegal, trespassing on private property and falsely imprisoning someone. My police cousin ordered them to release my cousin and leave the premises. The woman responded with dramatic eye-rolling and sarcasm, comparing my cousin's claim to being a police officer to her being the Queen of England. She threatened that if my police cousin didn't back off, her security would restrain them too. My police cousin stared at her for a moment, then reached for their concealed firearm and pointed it directly at the woman's head. My cousin repeated the order to release my other cousin, emphasizing their status as a sworn officer of the law and pointing out that the woman was committing multiple felonies. My police cousin gave them an ultimatum: remove the handcuffs and leave immediately, or face hell for their assault. The woman's face went white. The security guys exchanged nervous looks, clearly realizing they were in over their heads. My police cousin demanded to see identification right away. The security guys fumbled to produce IDs, revealing they weren't even licensed security guards, just neighborhood watch volunteers with fancy shirts. My police cousin ordered them to uncuff my cousin immediately, which one of the guys quickly did. My police cousin then gave them 30 seconds to leave the property, warning that after that, they'd be arrested for trespassing, false imprisonment, impersonating security personnel, and assault. The woman started backing away, her confidence completely gone. She made a weak threat that this wasn't over and the HOA board would hear about it. My police cousin countered that the district attorney would hear about her actions and again ordered them to leave. They practically ran back across the lawn. After they left, we tried to get the party going again, but the mood had definitely changed. My cousin was shaken up but insisted we continue celebrating. We did our best, but it wasn't the same. Later that night, after most guests had gone home, my police cousin made some calls. They found out the woman wasn't even the HOA president, she was just on the board. More importantly, my property was definitely not part of their association. My police cousin went to her house with 2 on-duty officers. They arrested her for criminal trespass, attempted unlawful detention, and impersonating a security officer by proxy. Turns out her security team wasn't licensed or authorized by anyone. They were just her friends playing dress-up. The story gets better. When they searched her house with a warrant, they found documentation showing she'd been collecting fake fines from several properties that weren't even part of the HOA. She'd been running a scam for years, intimidating people into paying penalties for violations of rules that didn't apply to them. My cousin's engagement party might have been disrupted, but we got the last laugh. The woman ended up facing multiple charges and the real HOA kicked her off the board completely. And best of all, my cousins decided to hold their actual wedding at my place too, this time with no unexpected guests. I work at the city's largest mall. The job pays decently, and I've managed to save up quite a bit for my wife and our future together. We're planning to move into a bigger apartment soon, and I'm taking on extra shifts whenever I can to make that happen sooner. During Ramadan, our mall changes its hours to accommodate those who are fasting. We open at 3 p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 a.m. This gives everyone plenty of time to shop, eat, and socialize after breaking their fast. It's been this way for years, and most people understand and respect these hours. Yesterday, I got to the mall around 2:30 p.m., hoping to get some shopping done for my wife before my evening shift started. I wanted to grab a good parking spot before the pre-iftar rush hit. Several other cars had already formed a neat queue outside the parking entrance. All of us were patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 p.m. sharp as usual. Everything was normal until this woman showed up in a massive black pickup truck with two private security guards following her in a separate vehicle. She completely ignored our queue, drove right up to the security gate, rolled down her window, and demanded that the guard open the gate immediately because she had things to do. Our security guard, who I know is a really patient guy, politely explained that the mall wasn't open yet and that she needed to queue like everyone else. The woman then asked if the guard knew who she was and pointed out her guards, declaring that she doesn't wait in lines like regular people. She then literally waved at her guards, who stepped out with their guns visible on their belts like they were about to escort her to some royal ceremony. They approached our security staff and started demanding that they let her through. The mall security guys, to their credit, stood their ground admirably. The security guard told her that nobody enters before 3 p.m. and asked her to queue like everyone else. The woman scoffed loudly and pulled out her phone to record the interaction, demanding to speak to the manager. At this point, the rest of us waiting in our cars were watching in anger and shock. The fact that we were all probably low on energy due to fasting and sitting in the heat made her behavior even more infuriating. A few minutes later, our mall manager showed up. I recognized him immediately. He's known for being fair but firm. He looked visibly annoyed as he walked right up to the woman's car. In the most authoritative voice I've ever heard him use, he told her that her guards don't dictate mall policy and that if she wanted to enter, she needed to wait like everyone else. He then instructed her to take her guards and move to the back of the line. The woman complained that this was unacceptable and threatened to call her husband and report the manager. The manager simply told her she could report him after she moved her car. The manager was an absolute legend at that moment. The entitled woman actually shut up. Her face turned red, and she sulked as she drove to the back of the line, with her guards looking completely useless and embarrassed. Once the mall opened and we all drove into the park, I noticed her truck again. She had parked across two spaces near the entrance. As I walked toward the mall doors, I saw her arguing with a parking attendant who was trying to give her a ticket. She asked the attendant if he knew that her husband could buy the entire mall. The parking attendant acknowledged that might be true, but explained that until her husband actually bought the mall, she still needed to park properly in one space. She complained that she needed the extra room so no one would damage her vehicle. The attendant suggested that she park further back where there was more space available. At this point, a small crowd had gathered, watching the spectacle. The woman noticed people filming with their phones and suddenly seemed to realize she was making a scene. She snatched the ticket from the attendant, stormed into the mall with her guards trailing behind her, and disappeared into a high-end store. Later during my shift, I heard from colleagues that she'd tried to cut in line at one of the popular restaurants during iftar time, claiming she had a reservation. When the restaurant manager confirmed they don't take reservations during Ramadan, she demanded to speak to the owner. The owner, who happened to be present, not only refused to seat her ahead of others, but also recognized her from previous incidents and asked her to leave the premises. When I was finishing my shift around midnight, I saw her being escorted out by mall security, not her own guards. Apparently, she had gotten into an argument with a store manager who refused to stay open past their closing time just for her. When she started yelling, mall security was called, and the chief of security decided enough was enough. I later heard from my supervisor that she's now been banned from the mall for 6 months. Her husband apparently called to complain, only to be sent the compilation of videos showing her behavior throughout the day. He never called back. My department manager is fine, but one supervisor, Mr. Power Trip, has had it out for me since transferring 6 months ago. Maybe because I don't laugh at his jokes or because I once pointed out a mistake in his plan. Recently, I came to work to find I've been written up for leaving 2 cases unworked due to no space on the shelf. This made no sense since I completed that section. A co-worker later told me they saw Mr. Power Trip placing items on the top shelf himself, then writing me up for it. The write-up was suspicious since there was no formal meeting with a witness as policy requires. His feedback stated I should check spaces and fix placement issues. If that's what he wanted, that's what he'd get. The next night, I saved his section until I knew he'd be arriving for morning shift. This area is notoriously disorganized, perfect for my plan. When he found me with half the shelf items spread across the floor as I reorganized everything, he stopped in his tracks. Mr. Power Trip demanded to know what I was doing and ordered me to put everything back. I explained I was following his feedback about fixing placement issues and showed him the screenshot on my phone. His face turned red as he tried to reason that we didn't have time to reorganize every shelf. I reminded him that as an hourly worker, time wasn't a constraint for me. Finally, he suggested we agree that I should respect all supervisors and their input. I agreed easily. As soon as he left, I moved to the next section, found another mess, and started removing those items too. He returned to find even more merchandise on the floor. I simply reminded him of our agreement about respecting supervisor input, including his written feedback to fix shelving issues. He couldn't argue without contradicting himself and stormed off. I methodically fixed every shelf, taking my time to ensure perfect placement. By shift's end, I'd earned an hour of overtime and left behind the most organized section in months. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.